Welcome to Gold and Black Live. This will be our January the 27th edition, as we have a very special show today and a very special first guest in Mike Berghoff, the chair of the Board of Trustees. And I want to thank our sponsors, Triple X, a place that I think Mike has probably been a time or two in his life. Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. And State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. Mike, I know you haven't done much of anything with respect to athletics or the university over the last 90 days. I mean, my guy, you have a new president, you're obviously extremely involved with Purdue sports with the hiring of a new football coach, a #1 ranked basketball team. It's been a pretty exciting time.
It has been. It's been one of the busiest streak of consecutive days, I would say, starting in December.
Yeah.
Through maybe to where we are today that I've experienced since I've been involved at Purdue. And it's all been very good stuff though, which is much better than some of our peers, who have that same kind of trouble. I mean, commitment on scheduling, but going from Mitch's transition out of office, we had a board meeting, we had Mitch Fest that lasted for a couple of weeks, then bringing Mung on, getting him all oriented. It's been a lot, but it's all been a privilege to be a part of.
Yeah, exciting time. We'll get into probably all of those topics in one form or another.
Sure.
I wanted to start out with Ryan Walters, obviously the hiring of him in December, transition from Jeff Brom. You, as you were in the Brom hire, very involved in that process with Mike Babinski and company in the interview process. You've interviewed a lot of people in your life professionally, and you know it when you see it. But what was the secret sauce, or what was that impression that Ryan Walters made on you that really kind of tipped the scales in his favor from your perspective?
First thing I want to do is acknowledge the significance of having Mike Babinski in the seat he's in right now. This guy just has a real knack for identifying talent. He's done it his whole career. I mean, most of our listeners know his career at Xavier and the basketball coaches he's hired, and he was quick to identify Jeff early on in that search process. And I remember he went on the first round of interviews by himself, and because they were folks who were probably in the second tier, and Jeff was one of them.
Yeah.
And he came back from that meeting and I said, "Hey, was there anybody?" I didn't go on that round because I'm waiting for, to go hire,
sure.
Steal somebody. Alabama's had Nick Saban. So he came back and he said, "Hey, there's a guy I really like." And he recapped Jeff's reasons why Jeff was so appealing. And, he was on target there for sure. That proved out. We went from a pretty bad spot to playing for the Big Ten division, West Division. Same thing here with Ryan. We had about an inventory of 15 coaches, that you just kind of keep on your top of your desk. You never know what's going to happen. And he was quick to settle in on a couple, 2 or 3. And those were the interviews that I sat in on personally. One of which being with Ryan out at Mount Comfort Airport in at I-70 and Oleo Road. He drove over from campus, and Mike and Tiffany and I and our agent Chad sat down with Ryan. And what impressed me most is his level of preparation. And that's kind of how he started. Actually, the way he started, he told his life story.
Yeah. And
that got my attention. Most everybody's heard about his parents being 16 years old when they had Ryan as a baby, and somehow managed to become parents and career folks, at ages that most of our listeners, couldn't do today. At 16, they're still together. His dad has a great job, and so that life story I think fits with Boilermakers. Not many of us come from significant means and find great ways to take advantage of the gifts that God gave us all and make the most out of them. And that was one thing that attracted me to Ryan. Then he walked through his career. I loved his Power Five experience.
Yeah.
At least I think it was five places. I liked how he got promoted along the way, both in a job that at a school where he started, and he'd made a couple of promotions, and he went to another Power Five school at a higher level, got a promotion. And that was impressive. That sends a signal. And he'd been a part of programs that struggled too.
Yeah.
So he'd seen a lot of it. But then he was fully prepared. He had a packet of information. He had an organizational chart. It was pretty comprehensive. It had names in every box, and he had backups in every box. And he explained to the four of us exactly why they were in that box and what he wants out of them and what they're responsible for delivering. And if this person isn't available when we want them, here's the next person they're going, and here's what we give up, but here's what we get. And he went through that and had a plan. And then there were the other thing is very confident, but humble, high energy guy. You could tell he was ready to get started, and it was obvious early on that he really wanted the job. I love that we have a coach who's his first big time head coaching job. That's also the thing I didn't like about him, because it's risky.
Yeah.
But here's a guy who's hungry, ready to go, and made it just a really incredible impression on me.
When you look at that list, and maybe you can't recall exactly, but was he close? He's named his staff, has now come out officially. Were there a lot of guys on that first list that you recall? And that may be an unfair question to have you.
Yeah, no, higher than average, much higher than average major league batting average.
Yeah.
In fact, I can only think of, there were a number that he was, as you move down the chain,
Sure.
There were a number that he was less certain on because one, there are a lot of moving parts at that level when coaching move. And then secondly, he was focusing on the key positions, but it was a very high batting average.
When you look at guys like that, and you mentioned it, and it's obvious that it is a challenge because he's never been in this position. But when you look at and even through your professional life, when you look for somebody that's going to be making that leap, is there something that you look at them and say, yeah, boy, I'm going to bet that this guy can do it? And obviously, you guys are betting that he can do it and be the head coach in this position. But what is in there that tells you, boy, is it the organizational abilities? Is it the intellectual ability? What do you put the biggest precedent on?
For me, it's some of the foundational characteristics that matter less than how many hours their butt has been in the seat.
Yeah,
it's really helpful, but I'd rather have the financial or the foundational characteristics build a platform for success and have limited experience at the top than be questioning their foundational base and banking on the results, because sometimes results without the foundational base occur because of external factors. But when you see somebody that has a formula, a God-given formula that has proven itself over and over, I feel really confident about that. If you got a minute, just for one example, it's one of the methods I have for hiring employees, people who at our company, is student athletes tend to produce great hires, because one, they know teamwork, they're goal oriented, they handle adversity, and they're persistent, and they're tough to knock off course, and they're eager to win, in the end. And so we hire, our hitting rate at the company is very high. You hire them, they've never been in a job before, but they end up succeeding. We just hired two folks from Purdue, a young lady who was a soccer player and a young man who was a pitcher in baseball, and their first year has been phenomenal.
Yeah, interesting. And there's a lot to that whole thing of 99% of them go into a profession other than the professional sports.
Right.
Part of that upbringing. And certainly, Ryan, the thing that's impressive also about him is that that confidence, but also the intellectual ability. I watched the interview he had done on Big Ten Network with Urban Meyer talking about defense, but his detail is and his, being able to break down film for somebody like me on the defensive side was impressive. I mean, do you feel like he's also not that you have to dumb it down for your players, but you've got to make it relatable? I mean, is that what do you think one of his key attributes as well?
On the defensive side, are you talking?
Yeah, or
about?
just the way
Yeah.
where he provides information to people he's going to have to do that with.
Yeah, I think most of you all saw in the press conference who were watching that there's something there about the way Ryan communicates.
Right.
He strikes a nice balance between being very knowledgeable. It's very clear he's very knowledgeable, but also being able to explain it in a way that everybody understands, which is a tremendous skill to have if you're leading a group of 100 young men and a big staff, to communicate what it is he expects of him, and what is in the program, and what's the offense all about, what's the defense all about. That's something else that came out both in the interview and then later got confirmed in subsequent meetings with him, including that press conference. I thought that was really, really, really great. And he's tuned in. You saw how he reached out to former era players, a nod of the hat to Coach Tiller.
Yeah.
And, recognized prior years and bringing the family together, and just really talented that way. I think a lot of that's going to translate out on the field, communication wise and so on.
Yeah, first thing he said in the press conference was, basically shout out to his former players like yourself. That I think really, I know resonated with folks that I was able to speak with from, and I think that makes a big difference when you look at the grand scheme. All right, when you look at the challenges ahead, obviously, Jeff Brom did a lot of great things to bring fans back in the stands, have an exciting brand of football. You played at this level and looked at it from you were a defensive guy. You've got a defensive guy in this situation, but he certainly seems to, from the hiring standpoint with Graham Harrell on down the line, exciting, fast-paced, big-time scoring football is still part of Purdue's quarterback-driven legacy. And certainly that seems to me like it's something he's going to continue to bring to the table.
Yeah, every action he's taken would reinforce that he recognizes the risk of his defensive DNA, perhaps overshadowing the need to score points.
Yeah.
I know it seems a lot of times that mistake is made, but there's been no action he's taken that would suggest he doesn't recognize, which should be pretty easy to recognize, the importance of scoring points in general, but especially at Purdue.
Yeah. All right, your other busy December, and it obviously been going on for a while. It's been going on for 10 years, and that, of course, being the legacy and the life and times of Mitch Daniels at Purdue. Well, he's moved on, and yet you brought in the board brought in Mung Chang, and has already made an impression on athletics with his appearance in Mackey Arena last Sunday in a large standing ovation. But tell us what we might expect, not only from a personality, but his view towards athletics and how you see that continuing to evolve during his tenure at West Lafayette.
Yeah, first of all, it's just been a real honor and a privilege, I think, to be associated with Mitch the last decade, and our fans and our alumni and the people who are close to Purdue have been so generous about, sharing with Mitch how much he's meant to the university. He truly has transformed the place to be a nationally relevant public university. And Mitch is the reason Mung came to Purdue. He got the offer to be the college or the dean of the College of Engineering, opened it up, signed it, put it back in the FedEx envelope, ran off to the post office, sent it back, went home, told his wife, Kay, that he accepted the job as dean of engineering at Purdue. And she wanted to know, well, how much are you going to get paid? He said, I have no idea. I just want to work for Mitch Daniels.
Yeah.
And he proved that all the 5 years he was on campus as the dean. We got basically a 5-year interview of the guy to consider for president. We had a couple of other very qualified people at the university who could have been president at Purdue and are qualified to be president at other places. And if that's what they want to do, I hope they do. But we settled on Mung, mostly because he's the right guy for Purdue at the right time. Tech oriented, the world's demanding tech. He comes from a tech background. He's a businessman. He was a New Jersey CEO of the year because of his couple of startups, all in tech. And it's pretty obvious that that's where the industry's going right now. What he cares about is being the best at everything, and he cares about winning.
Yeah.
He wants the best college of engineering. He wants it to be the best and the biggest at scale. He's going to expect that of all the other colleges. Some are great already, but he wants to be the best. And guess what? He doesn't know that much about sports. He's Chinese American. Sports, his history has taken such a unique route, but he knows one thing: if you're going to participate, we want to be the best. And there are some things that he's already deferred to the board and members of the board and deferred to me that, all it says is, I know you guys know what's required. I'm going to be supportive. If it enhances the reputation of the university and it gets us to a spot where it's the best, let's go for it. And I have no concerns about his level of support for Purdue athletics. People are going to see how committed he can be. In fact, he was probably the first time since I've been on the board, which is a little over 10 years, he invited all the head coaches over to Westwood for dinner Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time, at least Dave Shondell said it's the first time it's happened since he's been there. Mm-hmm. So he's cultivating the connections that are required to make sure that Purdue University does everything to make our athletic department and teams as top of the Big Ten.
Yeah, in your 10 plus years on the board, and I know you can't speak for everybody on the board, but you are one member, but you, in your role as chair, alignment is just you've talked about that a lot publicly. Mike Babinski's talked about that. My guess is along with Ryan Walters is here, he'll talk about that as well. Just the importance of that. I mean, alignment being from the board to the athletic director to the president of the university. You've seen that evolve in your time. I mean, it's been a process to be able to get to that level, maybe. But to tell us why that really is absolutely essential if you're going to do what you want to do in athletics.
Well, if you look at it from the coach's perspective, there are a lot of folks who can get in your way when it comes to Division I university athletics. It could be rogue members of the board. It could be the leadership, the academic leadership could get in the way. It could be, fans can be problematic sometimes. And so, I think part of it is because the majority of the folks on the board come from a business background. They know that what works the best is picking the right leader and providing them the resources they need, the support they need, the advice they need, but letting them handle all the execution. I have nothing to offer Ryan. Yeah, from a X's and O standpoint, right? But I can make things available to him that make him more successful. Things that help him recruiting, getting his coaches out on the road in ways that's convenient for the coaches to make 5 stops instead of 1 stop. Just really the simpler things that can drag somebody down. But if you get out of the way and provide them the support, it allows them to be a rocket ship and really kick some butt.
Yeah, he's going to have that challenge and that opportunity. Already working at it really hard with the signing day next week, but the transfer portal. and everything else.
Yeah.
It's a 365-day a year job. All right, I want to ask you a little bit about that excellence you're talking about, and of course, men's basketball ranked #1. Mackey Arena is an extremely special environment. It will be on Sunday when Michigan State comes to town. There's some special things going on that day as well. But just talk about, again, you've been around a long time. You've seen Mackey Arena has always been a great place, even back to your college days. But it seems to be at a new level, and Matt Painter and company seem to have this program. It's never on autopilot, but it certainly is a situation where it has every opportunity to achieve at the highest level.
Well, that's for sure. Matt's stayed true to himself and his commitment to what it takes to win, what his formula is. You know, his formula adapts over time, but it's his formula, you know, and when you look at the success we've had, he's proven that he and his staff, which has been pretty consistent, who know what it takes to win. And, it wasn't too long ago where we had a couple of bumpy years, and I think the university and the leadership at the time treated that the way it should have been, temporary, and realized it's temporary. Didn't go off the rails because we knew we had great leadership. We had a good direction, and that's what Matt brought. And now for the last 6, 8 years, 10 years, those have paid dividends, and I think the future's looking really bright. And we're going to go to the Final Four, and we're going to win a national championship with this guy. And that's what's going to happen.
I'm with you. I think he's got every piece is in place. And you talk about a guy that puts foundation first and has process that quietly works. That certainly is in that situation. All right, the wonderful world.
Our fans have a lot to do with that too at Mackey Arena. I mean, you look around the league, you watch Big Ten games on other. On the Big Ten network, and you look at the stands, and they're not that bad of a team, but there's empty seats in the lower level. There's empty seats at mid-level. And, our games in December where the students weren't there were sold out. They're packed, they're loud. Every announcer talks about it. It's quite an environment.
Yeah, it really is. And when you think about the New Orleans and Florida A&M games, shoulder to shoulder. And I think that's right, because it used to be, you would have that game and it might still have great crowds back in the day, but it was always more subdued, and you could tell it for some reason. Either there's a lot of former paint crew members that are coming to these games, but it's still loud in there for those games, and that I think is a significant change over the last 5 to 10 years that I've noticed that even been more of that. All right, I mentioned just navigating the world of college sports and being able to put it in perspective in a higher education situation. NIL you can go on for hours about that. It is here. It is what it is. It is an important part of how potential and prospective and also current student athletes look at their experience. Transfer portal makes it makes a lot of flexibilities for these student athletes. How are you, not just sleeping at night, but how are you digesting all this, and looking at this from a higher ed perspective?
Well, a lot changed in a hurry.
Yeah.
And so it's taken some time for us all to accommodate the changes in, in the legislature, the NCAA's. And plus, by the way, we got a new NCAA president coming. We're going to have a new Big Ten commissioner. The whole NIL thing's fairly new. The expansion of the portal flexibility is new. It's a lot to deal with. But these are tools that our coaches can use to their advantage too. And ideally, we find the lane that benefits the student athletes in a way that they should be benefited, but doesn't get in the way of the primary purpose of them getting an education, competing at the highest level for championships and winning some championships, and then getting opportunities to do something after their collegiate career, whether it be in sports or in their academic pursuit. And finding that avenue is important. So let's start just quickly with the NIL. I want everybody to understand the university supports and athletics supports the need for NIL support of our student athletes. And I want to encourage our donors to give to the Boilermaker Alliance, because our coaches need this tool to compete against our competitors. And we're doing it in the right way. We don't have time to talk about the nuances of how we're doing it, but if you want to look it up, the Boilermaker Alliance, their website explains what the avenue is. And we need to have that group fully funded to provide our players an opportunity to be student athletes, go to school and have some cash so they can live, a life that's similar to some of our other students, and nothing out, exuberant, but something that allows us to compete. The portal is a whole different thing. I mean, certainly the student athletes should have an opportunity to move to a place, especially like when a coach didn't make a change. But what's difficult is the number of student athletes who are applying into the portal at once. I mean, I think it's almost like a third of the students. That really makes it rough. So I think the thing we need to focus on is just making it painfully hard to leave our place. To create such an opportunity for our student athletes, there's no way they would go somewhere else. Unless they're in the wrong place. Maybe they can't compete at this level or something. But that's the only way I know how to compete against the downside of the portals. Create something really special at Purdue athletics.
Does, and we talk about the Boilermaker Alliance, and we've hit that a lot on our site with Jeff McKean and company. You've obviously an Indianapolis area business person that deals with a lot of support from that area, and it is an important part of that. You're going to need financial support. How do you balance? I asked Mike Babinski the same question in the grand scheme of fundraising, where you have a lot of projects that you still want to get done, but you also have, this relatively new thing of funding college athletes. How do you see that balancing out over the next period of time? Is this going to still continue to evolve in terms of how donors spend their money or donate to the university, also to the Alliance?
Yeah, I think if you have a broad base of donors coming from all sorts of different backgrounds and income levels, what we're going to find is a donor level that has capacity to give both to the NIL and to the university, because they have the resources to do that. Some of them aren't doing it now because the NIL never existed. And so we got to find a way to communicate to them that not only does the university think it's a good idea, they support doing it, and we want them to give to both, much like you would at it. Maybe you go to church and you put money in the basket every Sunday, but now they want to build a school or add a new building. Somehow you find a way to help with the capital campaign and continue to do your tithe. Okay, that's what we're talking about. But then you got another donor base level that maybe doesn't have as much fluid income, and they're going to have to make a choice, and that's okay. Because if we have a large enough pool to draw from, the amounts we're talking about, while they're significant and they're important, we can meet the obligations that we think we need to meet to be on the NIL side, to be competitive, and to make sure that the university side of the athletic department flourishes as well.
All right, and we've already gone over the time I told you we would spend on this, but I appreciate your time. One last question on facilities. Obviously, a lot going on. Not only the Sam Allen golf facility that's going to be on Cherry Lane, which will be spectacular, but as it pertains to football, a lot going on in Ross-Ade Stadium, in and around Ross-Ade Stadium. How do you, your job as board members and working with athletics is to fly the jet, look 5-10 years down the road. Are we reaching now a point where we're getting to where you want to be from a facility standpoint? Or is this just an ever evolving, not arms race is too harsh of a word, but a challenge to be able to keep up with the programs that you want to keep up with?
I think we got stalled for a couple of years because of COVID. We're back on track. Both the phase 1 and phase 2 of Ross-Ade are going to make a big difference. And we're going to create an environment at Ross, continue to create an environment at Ross-Ade that rewards our fans for being as loyal as they have been, because that stadium was filled up. Yeah. But it's old. Yeah. And so we're going to improve it. We're going to enhance it. And there'll be other phases. There'll be some continuous improvement, but after phase 1 and phase 2, it's going to be a much better place. And then we'll continue on some fine tuning. Yeah, a lot still to happen with that, and
that will be an interesting storyline to watch. Mike, thanks so much for your time. It always is interesting. You're always very forthcoming on your thoughts, and if you go back and look at the old interviews, he's been right just about every time. So that's a good thing from that standpoint. So we appreciate your time, and safe travels when you get back. You have to make the trek time and again from Indianapolis area up to Lafayette for basketball, but also for university business. And we appreciate your service as well. So we'll take a short break. Golden Black Live will be back with our next segment, and much more to come on the show as we look forward to what will be a busy weekend of Purdue sports, but certainly that Purdue-Michigan State game on Sunday going to be a fun environment in Mackey Arena. I'm looking forward to that game as well. I'll be in for that. And I want to just recognize one of our donors, Bruce White, who passed away a couple of weeks. The guy was an incredible sports fan, friend of Mike Steele's, and who you're going to have in next week or so. Huge basketball fan. I think has become the university's largest donor in history. And there's going to be a video, I think, after the first media timeout at the basketball game, honoring Bruce, and he deserves it. Yes, and he was a supporter of Golden Black as well, and a guy that was very, very passionate about not only Purdue sports, but obviously the university as a whole, and a guy that could talk the talk. That was for sure. We had some great conversations about the nuts and bolts of what was going on in Purdue sports, and that I enjoyed. That was privileged to have that opportunity. Well said, Mike. Thanks so much again, and safe travels. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the big house, Mackey Arena, that is, on Sunday. Okay, thanks a lot.